The pounding on the door at dawn wasn't a polite knock. It was the kind that rattles windows and makes hearts stop. Four men in tactical gear stood on the porch, HOA inspector, blazoned across their backs in white letters. Their leader's hand rested on his holstered pistol as he barked through the door, "Open up! Your wife is under arrest!" But they'd made one fatal mistake. They had no idea the woman they'd come to intimidate was Rachel Blake, the county sheriff, who'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. Follow my story to the end and comment your city below so I can see how far this tale of suburban warfare has traveled. The first thing Jack Blake noticed that morning wasn't the sunrise bleeding orange through their kitchen window or the steam curling from his untouched coffee. It was the silence, that unnatural quiet that comes right before everything goes wrong. Then the pounding started. The front door shook in its frame. Picture frames rattled on the wall. The kind of hammering that usually comes with a battering ram and a warrant. "Open the door, Mr. Blake." The voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "Your wife is under arrest." Jack's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. Through the side window, he caught glimpses of dark shapes moving on the porch. Four men, tactical stance, military bearing. Rachel appeared in the hallway, tying her dark hair back with practiced efficiency. Her gray eyes found his across the room. No panic. No surprise. Just that cool assessment he'd seen 1,000 times before, though he'd never quite understood what it meant. Until today. She moved toward the door with deliberate calm, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. Jack noticed how she positioned herself, never directly in front of the door, always at an angle. Little things he'd attributed to quirks or habits suddenly took on new meaning. Through the frosted glass, the shapes shifted impatiently. One of them pounded again. "Daniel Blake, step outside now." Jack set down his mug. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. In the 2 years they'd lived in Oakwood Heights, nothing like this had ever happened. This was supposed to be their quiet escape from city life, their piece of suburban paradise. The men on the porch wore matching navy shirts with bold white lettering across the back, HOA inspector. The fabric looked cheap, probably ordered online, but the holstered weapons at their hips looked real enough. "Open up or we're coming in." Rachel's hand moved to the doorknob. She glanced back at Jack and something passed between them, an understanding that their carefully constructed normal life was about to shatter. She opened the door just enough to engage the chain. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone Jack had heard her use with difficult clients. "It's 6 in the morning. What seems to be the emergency?" The man in front stepped into the light, and Jack's stomach dropped. Marcus Sterling, their neighbor from across the street. But this wasn't the Marcus who'd helped them move furniture on their first day. This wasn't the friendly local cop who'd waved from his driveway every morning. This Marcus wore wraparound sunglasses despite the dim light, a tactical vest that tried too hard to look official, and an expression of smug authority that made Jack's fists clench. "Step aside, ma'am," Marcus said, his voice pitched low and threatening. "We have reports of code violations and security breaches. You need to come with us for questioning." Rachel tilted her head slightly. "Questioning by the HOA. Neighborhood security isn't a joke, Mrs. Blake." Marcus's hand drifted toward his weapon. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Behind him, the other 3 men shifted nervously. One kept glancing at the street, probably checking for witnesses. Another cleared his throat uncomfortably. The third stood rigid, trying to project authority, but failing. "Do you have a warrant?" Rachel asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't need paper to keep this neighborhood safe." "Actually," Rachel said, "you do." The morning air seemed to crystallize around them. Jack could hear Mrs. Patterson's sprinklers clicking on 3 houses down. A dog barked somewhere. Normal suburban sounds that felt surreal against the tension crackling on their porch. "You're making a mistake," Marcus growled. Rachel's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "No, Marcus. The mistake is yours." 2 years earlier, none of this would have made sense. Back then, Jack and Rachel Blake were just another professional couple looking to escape the grinding pace of San Diego. Jack worked as a structural engineer on major construction projects. Bridges, high-rises, infrastructure that kept the city running. Rachel was a security consultant, or at least that's what she told people at parties. The description was vague enough to satisfy casual curiosity without inviting follow-up questions. They'd been married 12 years together for 15. No kids, not by choice initially, but time had a way of making decisions permanent. They'd built their life around each other and their careers, and for a long time that had been enough. But somewhere around their 40th birthdays, the city had started to feel like a cage. The traffic, the noise, the constant urgency of urban life, it wore on them like sandpaper on skin. They'd started talking about somewhere quieter, somewhere they could breathe. Oakwood Heights had seemed perfect. The development sat 40 minutes outside San Diego, close enough for Jack to commute, but far enough to feel like a different world. Tree-lined streets with names like Willowbrook and Meadowlark, houses with actual yards instead of postage stamp patches of grass. The kind of place where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on and neighbors actually knew each other's names. They'd found the house on Sycamore Court during a Sunday drive, a 2-story craftsman with original hardwood floors and enough character to feel like home. The previous owners had been military transferred to Virginia on short notice. Motivated sellers, the realtor had said. Jack and Rachel got it for $30,000 under asking. Moving day had been a community event. Neighbors appeared with casseroles and offers to help. Bob and Linda Patterson from 2 doors down brought their teenage son to help with boxes. The Nguyens from the corner house contributed homemade spring rolls. And Marcus Sterling. Officer Marcus Sterling, as he made sure everyone knew, had shown up with his pickup truck and an easy smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he'd said, his handshake firm and friendly. "I live right across the street. If you ever need anything, just holler." Marcus had seemed like a godsend those first weeks. He knew which contractors were reliable, which restaurants delivered where to find the best hiking trails. When Jack's garage door opener broke, Marcus had it fixed in 20 minutes. When Rachel mentioned wanting to landscape the backyard, he'd recommended a guy who did excellent work at fair prices. "We're lucky to have him," Linda Patterson had said during one of those early evening walks. "Having a real police officer on the street makes everyone feel safer." The Sterlings hosted a barbecue that first month. Half the neighborhood showed up. Marcus held court by the grill, telling stories about his time on the force, careful to keep them light and entertaining. His wife Diane was quieter but friendly, making sure everyone's drinks were full and introducing newcomers around. "You two are going to love it here," Marcus had said, clapping Jack on the shoulder. "This is one of those neighborhoods where people look out for each other. We keep things nice and quiet." Jack had believed him. Why wouldn't he? The street was peaceful. Kids played in front yards. People walked their dogs after dinner. It was everything they'd wanted. The first sign of trouble came almost exactly a year later. Jack and Rachel had decided to replace their fence. The existing one was falling apart, rotted posts, warped boards. Gaps wide enough for the neighbor's retriever to squeeze through. They wanted something sturdy and private. Rachel worked from home, often taking video calls with clients, and the old fence did nothing to muffle sound or block sight lines. They'd done everything right. Checked city ordinances, hired a surveyor to confirm property lines, pulled all the necessary permits. The city allowed fences up to 8 feet. They were only going for 6. Wrought iron with decorative scrollwork on top. Classic, elegant, fully legal. The day construction started, Marcus changed. No more friendly waves from the driveway. No more casual conversations at the mailbox. He'd stand in his front yard, arms crossed, watching the crew work, sometimes for hours. "Is there a problem?" Jack had asked him one evening. Marcus's smile had been tight, forced. "That's a pretty substantial fence, neighbor. We like our privacy. Privacy can be a problem in a community like this. We look out for each other here. Hard to do that with a wall in the way." It had seemed like a minor disagreement at the time. Neighbors had different opinions about things. That was normal. Then the letter arrived. Heavy cream paper, embossed letterhead from a law firm Jack had never heard of. The language was dense with legal terminology, but the message was clear: cease and desist construction immediately or face fines of $500 per day. "This is bullshit," Jack had said, spreading the letter on the kitchen counter. "We have all the permits." Rachel had studied it carefully, her expression unreadable. "Call the law firm. Verify this is real." It wasn't. The receptionist at Brennan Holt and Associates had never heard of them or their address. When Jack emailed her a copy, she'd been alarmed. "If someone is impersonating our firm, that's a federal offense. We'll need to report this." The forged letter was just the beginning. Anonymous notes started appearing, tucked under windshield wipers, taped to their door, slipped through the mail slot, always polite on the surface, but with an undercurrent of threat. Good neighbors work together. Consider the community before yourself. Outsiders don't understand how things work here. Different handwriting each time, different paper. But the message was consistent: fall in line or face consequences. The social freeze came next. People who'd been friendly for a year suddenly had somewhere else to be when Jack and Rachel approached. Conversations died mid-sentence. Invitations stopped coming. The evening walks became exercises in isolation, neighbors turning away or ducking inside when they saw them coming. "It's Marcus," Rachel had said one night, standing at the window watching him talk to 3 other neighbors in his driveway. "He's orchestrating this." "You don't know that." She turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Or maybe he had, and just hadn't recognized it. "Yes," she'd said quietly. "I do." The emergency HOA meeting had been the first public escalation. Marcus had called it for a Saturday afternoon, setting up folding chairs on the sidewalk directly in front of Jack and Rachel's house. No official notice, no agenda, just Marcus Sterling playing commissioner of the neighborhood. 23 people showed up. Marcus had stood before them like a prosecutor presenting to a jury. He'd pointed at the half-finished fence as if it were evidence of a crime. "As you can see, the Blake family has refused to comply with community standards. This fence blocks sightlines. It prevents us from monitoring the street for safety. It sends a message that they don't want to be part of this community." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people nodded. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Then Marcus had dropped his bomb. "I've done some investigating." He'd paused for effect, making sure everyone was listening. "Mrs. Blake claims to be a security consultant, but her actual job is classified. She works at a government facility. The exact nature of her work is marked confidential. For all we know, we could be living next to someone who poses a threat to national security." The crowd had reacted exactly as he'd intended. Gasps, whispers, people stepping back as if proximity to the Blake house might be dangerous. Jack had watched from the window, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. But Rachel had stood beside him, perfectly calm. "He just made a mistake," she'd said softly. "What mistake?" "He's turning the whole neighborhood against us." She'd looked at him, then really looked at him, and he'd seen something shift in her expression, a decision being made. "Jack," she'd said, "there's something I need to tell you." But before she could continue, someone had knocked on their door. Not Marcus this time. Mrs. Patterson looking terrified. "I'm sorry," she'd whispered, shoving an envelope into Jack's hands before hurrying away. Inside was another note, but this one was different. This one was in Marcus's handwriting. "Last chance. Lower the fence, or things get worse." Rachel had read it once, then carefully placed it in a plastic bag. "What are you doing?" Jack had asked. "Collecting evidence." "Evidence for what?" She'd looked at him with those cool gray eyes. "For what comes next?" The late-night visits started the following week. Cars creeping past at 2, 3 in the morning. Sometimes they'd stop in front of the house, engines idling, headlights off. Jack would peer through the blinds and see shadows inside the vehicles, but could never make out faces. Rachel had started making changes to their routine. She installed new locks on all the doors, added security film to the ground floor windows, set up what she called tells, small indicators that would show if anyone had been on their property. A thread across the gate latch, dust on the doorknobs arranged in specific patterns. Things that seemed paranoid until the morning they found footprints in the flower bed beneath their bedroom window. "We should call the police," Jack had said. Rachel had given him a look he couldn't interpret. "That won't help." "Why not?" "Because Marcus Sterling is the police. At least that's what he wants everyone to think." She'd opened her laptop, then angling it so he could see the screen. A database Jack didn't recognize filled with official-looking records. "Marcus Sterling isn't a cop," she'd said. "Hasn't been for 3 years. He was fired from the San Diego Police Department for excessive force and falsifying reports. Since then, he's been working private security, but even that dried up when complaints started piling up." Jack had stared at the screen, trying to process what he was seeing. "How do you have access to this?" Rachel had closed the laptop without answering. The neighborhood BBQ that weekend had been the turning point. The Chens were hosting, celebrating their daughter's college acceptance. Jack and Rachel hadn't been invited, but they could hear the party from their backyard. Laughter. Music. The normalcy they'd been excluded from. Around 9 o'clock, Marcus had shown up at their back gate. Not alone this time. 3 other men stood with him, all wearing similar dark clothing, all trying to project the same authority. "We need to inspect your property," Marcus had announced. "No," Rachel had said simply. "Excuse me. No, you have no authority here. Please leave." Marcus had smiled then, but it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed having power over others. "You know, Mrs. Blake, accidents happen in neighborhoods, especially to people who don't fit in. Vandalism, break-ins, fires, terrible things." The threat had hung in the air between them. Rachel hadn't flinched. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Sterling?" "I'm just observing that communities have ways of dealing with problems. Natural consequences, you might say." One of the men with him had shifted uncomfortably. Another had looked away. But the third had grinned, enjoying the intimidation. "Get off my property," Rachel had said, her voice steady as steel. Marcus had backed away, hands raised in mock surrender. "Just trying to keep the neighborhood safe, ma'am. That's all any of us want." They'd left, but Jack had seen them stop at the corner, huddled in conversation, occasionally glancing back at the house. That night, Rachel had made a decision. "I need to tell you something," she'd said, sitting across from him at the kitchen table. "About who I really am. About what I really do." Jack had braced himself. Part of him had always known there was more to his wife than she let on. The way she moved, the way she observed everything, the mysterious calls she took in private, the consulting work that required security clearances but never seemed to produce any paperwork. "I'm not a security consultant," she'd said. He'd waited. "I'm the county sheriff." The words had hung in the air like a physical presence. Jack had stared at her, trying to reconcile this revelation with the woman he'd been married to for 12 years. "Sheriff?" he'd repeated. "Elected last year. 15 years in law enforcement before that. FBI liaison for 3 years. SWAT commander for 2. I didn't tell you because..." She'd paused, searching for words. "Because I wanted us to have a normal life. Because the job comes with enemies. Because sometimes the best protection is anonymity." 12 years, Jack had said quietly. "We've been married 12 years and you never told me." "I couldn't, not at first, and then later it became about protecting you. The less you knew, the safer you were." "From what?" "From people like Marcus Sterling." She'd pulled out a thick folder, then filled with documents, photos, printouts. "His real name is Marcus Mitchell. The Sterling identity is fake. He's been doing this for years, moving from neighborhood to neighborhood, establishing himself as security as authority, then using that position to force people out of their homes. Why? Because someone pays him to. Someone who wants specific properties in specific neighborhoods, military families especially, law enforcement families, people with security clearances who live near sensitive facilities." Jack had felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. We were targeted. From the beginning. The previous owners of this house, the military couple who had to sell quickly, they didn't get transferred. They were driven out. Marcus was setting up here when that happened, establishing himself, waiting for the next target. Us. Us. "So what do we do?" Rachel had smiled then, and it wasn't the smile of his wife, the security consultant. It was the smile of someone who'd been in battles before and knew how to win them. "We let him think he's winning. We let him escalate. And we document everything." She'd shown him the cameras then. Tiny things hidden in places he'd never think to look. The maple tree, the eaves of the garage, inside the front door frame. "You've been recording. Everything, every threat, every trespass, every word. And then we give him enough rope to hang himself." The power had gone out at exactly 2:47 a.m. 3 nights later. Jack had woken to complete darkness and the sound of footsteps on gravel. Rachel was already up dressed, standing at the window. "They're here," she'd whispered. 4 figures moved across their front yard. Flashlights sweeping back and forth. Even in the darkness, Jack could make out the letters on their backs. HOA Inspector. "This is it," Rachel had said. "The big play. He's going to try to force his way and claim some kind of emergency authority. What do? We let him come. But Jack, she'd turned to him. Whatever happens next, whatever you see me do, just remember I've been preparing for this moment since the day we moved in. The pounding had started then. The same pounding that would echo through the neighborhood, the same pounding that would finally reveal to everyone who Marcus Sterling really was, and who Rachel Blake had been all along. Marcus stood on their porch now, his hand inches from his weapon, his face twisted with the kind of rage that comes from losing control. "I'm done playing games," he snarled. "You're coming with us, both of you." Rachel stepped outside, letting the door close behind her. She moved with deliberate calm, positioning herself between Marcus and the house, between Marcus and Jack. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone of authority Jack was only now beginning to recognize. "You're impersonating a law enforcement officer. You're armed, you're trespassing, and you're doing it all on camera." She pointed to the maple tree. Marcus's head snapped around following her gesture. The tiny red light of the hidden camera blinked back at him. "That's not..." He stopped recalculating. "That doesn't matter. I have authority here." "No," Rachel said. "You don't." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out something small and silver. A badge. Not the fake kind Marcus wore. This one caught the morning light and threw it back in sharp official angles. "Rachel Blake," she said, her voice carrying across the yard. "County Sheriff. And you, Marcus Mitchell, are under arrest." The words seemed to freeze time. The three men behind Marcus stepped back simultaneously. One actually turned and started walking away, abandoning the scene entirely. Marcus's face went through a series of transformations: confusion, disbelief, understanding, and finally, desperate rage. "You're lying." Rachel pulled out her phone, dialed a number from memory, and put it on speaker. "Sheriff Blake." The voice was male professional. "Are you secure?" "For now, Deputy Rodriguez, but I'm going to need backup at my residence. 4 suspects, at least 1 armed." "Units are already en route, Sheriff. ETA 3 minutes." She ended the call and looked back at Marcus. "You have 3 minutes to decide how this ends. You can walk away now and we handle this through lawyers, or you can stay and you leave in handcuffs." Marcus's hand moved to his weapon. "I wouldn't," Rachel said softly. "You think I'm scared of you. You should be." Something in her voice and her posture, in the absolute certainty of her words, made Marcus hesitate. His hand hovered over the gun grip, trembling slightly. In the distance, sirens began to wail. 2 minutes, Rachel said. Marcus looked at his remaining 2 companions. They were already backing toward the street, wanting no part of what was coming. "This isn't over," Marcus said, his voice thick with fury. "You're right," Rachel agreed. "It's just beginning." The sirens grew louder. Lights flashed at the end of the street. Real police cars. Real officers. Real authority. Marcus turned and ran. He made it 3 houses before the first patrol car cut him off. Officers emerged with weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus dropped to his knees, hands behind his head. The picture of surrender. But as they cuffed him, as they read him his rights, he turned back to look at Rachel. His expression was no longer angry. It was something worse. It was calculating. This had been just the first move in a longer game. And Marcus Sterling, or Mitchell, or whoever he really was, wasn't playing alone. The sun was fully up now, painting Oakwood Heights in golden morning light. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the sirens and commotion. They stood in driveways and on porches, watching as Marcus was loaded into a patrol car. Mrs. Patterson approached hesitantly. "Rachel, are you okay?" Rachel turned to face her neighbor, and Jack saw her shift back into the woman they'd known for 2 years. Friendly, approachable, normal. "We're fine, Linda. There was just a misunderstanding." But Linda Patterson wasn't buying it. Her eyes went to the badge still in Rachel's hand. "You're a sheriff." "Yes. This whole time." "Yes." Linda looked at Jack, then back at Rachel. "And Marcus. Marcus has been lying to all of us. He's not a police officer. Hasn't been for years." The revelation rippled through the gathered crowd. Whispers turned to exclamations. Phones came out, pictures were taken, texts were sent. By noon, everyone in Oakwood Heights would know the truth. But Rachel wasn't paying attention to the crowd anymore. She was watching a van parked at the corner, its engine running, windows tinted too dark to see inside. It pulled away as the last patrol car left, disappearing around the corner with deliberate calm. "Who was that?" Jack asked. Rachel's expression was grim. "The real problem." She turned and walked back toward the house, already pulling out her phone, already planning the next move. Because Marcus Mitchell had been right about one thing. This wasn't over, not even close. The van had been silver, not white. Rachel Blake stood at her kitchen window, watching the empty corner where it had disappeared. Her phone pressed to her ear. "Rodriguez, I need everything you have on Vincent Cross." Deputy Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled through the speaker. "Cross, what's he got to do with your neighbor's situation?" "That van that just left registered to one of his shell companies. Sterling Mitchell, he's not working alone." "Jesus, Rachel, you sure, dead sure? And if Cross is involved, this thing is bigger than one neighborhood." She ended the call and turned to find Jack staring at her, her husband of 12 years looking at her like she was a stranger. "Vincent Cross?" he asked. Rachel set down her phone, weighing how much to tell him, how much he needed to know versus how much would put him in danger. Real estate developer, or that's what he calls himself. Really, he's a predator, targets specific properties, specific families, uses people like Marcus to force them out. And he's been watching our house since before we moved in. Jack sank into a kitchen chair. The morning sun streaming through the window made everything look normal, peaceful. But nothing would be normal again. "Rachel, what the hell have we walked into?" She sat across from him, reached for his hands. They were rough from years of engineering work, steady and strong. She'd fallen in love with those hands, with their capability and gentleness. "We didn't walk into anything. They brought it to us." "But why? Why us?" Rachel stood and walked to the hall closet. From the top shelf behind winter coats they never used in Southern California, she pulled down a locked briefcase. Her fingers moved over the combination lock with practiced ease. Inside were documents, photographs, maps. She spread them across the table. "Oakwood Heights isn't random. Look at the location." She pointed to a satellite map. 15 minutes from Coronado Naval Base. 20 minutes from Camp Pendleton. Direct route to 3 defense contractors. This neighborhood is perfectly positioned for anyone wanting to monitor military movements. Jack studied the map. His engineer's mind immediately saw the patterns. Strategic positioning. "Exactly. Now look at this." She pulled out a list of names and addresses. Every family that's moved out of Oakwood Heights in the last 3 years. Notice anything? Jack scanned the list. Military ranks jumped out at him. Security clearances, defense contractor employees, they're all connected to national security. And they all left after pressure from the HOA. Violations, fines, harassment. Rachel pulled out another document. Guess who bought their houses? The buyer names were different, but the pattern was clear. Shell companies, corporate entities, all tracing back to variations of the same theme. Cross. Through about 15 layers of paperwork, but yes, Vincent Cross now owns or controls 40% of this neighborhood. For what real estate profit? Rachel's expression darkened. Intelligence gathering, corporate espionage, maybe worse. Imagine having eyes and ears in a neighborhood full of people with security clearances. Imagine what you could overhear, what you could observe. The weight of it settled over Jack like a lead blanket. Their quiet suburban dream had been an illusion from the start. A knock at the door interrupted them. Soft, hesitant. Rachel swept the documents back into the briefcase with smooth efficiency. By the time Jack opened the door, she was just a woman cleaning up after breakfast. Linda Patterson stood on the porch, wringing her hands. "I'm sorry to bother you, but can we talk?" Rachel gestured her inside. Linda looked older than her 53 years, stress etched in lines around her eyes. "I saw what happened this morning with Marcus, and I need to tell you something." She sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where classified documents had been spread moments before. "Marcus came to us 8 months ago. Bob had just gotten a promotion at General Atomics, senior project manager, higher security clearance." Linda's voice shook. "Marcus said he'd noticed suspicious activity around our house, said he was keeping an eye on things for our safety." Rachel poured her a glass of water, stayed silent. Then the violations started. Our trash cans were 6 inches too far from the curb. Our dog barked during quiet hours, except we don't have a dog. The fines kept coming, 500 here, 1,000 there. Did you fight them? Jack asked. We tried, but Marcus had witnesses, other neighbors who swore they'd seen or heard things. The HOA board backed him completely. Linda took a shaky sip of water. Then came the offer. Rachel leaned forward. What offer? A company called Sunset Holdings. They offered to buy our house for 20% above market value. Cash. Quick close. The letter came the same day we got a $10,000 fine for a fence violation. We don't even have a fence. What did you do? Bob wanted to fight, but then Linda's voice broke. Then someone broke into his car at work. Nothing stolen, but they left photos on the driver's seat, pictures of me at the grocery store, at the gym, getting coffee. The message was clear. Rachel's jaw tightened. You were threatened. We have 2 kids in college. We couldn't risk, we just couldn't. Linda pulled out her phone, showed them a photo. This came yesterday. It was a real estate listing. The Patterson house, which they'd sold 8 months ago, was back on the market. The asking price was double what Sunset Holdings had paid them. They forced us into a rental 3 blocks over, Linda said. But I still walk the old route sometimes. I see things. Cars that don't belong. People taking photos. And there's something else. She glanced at the window as if checking for watchers. The Chens, the Nguyen's, the Johnsons, they all got offers last week. Right after you started building your fence. Rachel and Jack exchanged glances. Marcus accelerated his timeline, Rachel said. He was trying to clear the whole street. But why? Linda asked. Before Rachel could answer, her phone buzzed. Rodriguez. Sheriff, we've got a problem. Mitchell made bail. What? How? High-powered lawyer showed up within an hour, posted $100,000 cash like it was nothing. Rachel stood already moving. Where is he now? That's the problem. He walked out 20 minutes ago and we lost him. Through the kitchen window, Rachel saw a familiar figure standing in the Sterling's driveway. Marcus Mitchell, free as a bird, talking on his phone. He looked up, met her eyes through the glass, and smiled. Found him, she said. Marcus ended his call and walked to the property line. Not crossing, not technically trespassing, but making his presence felt. Rachel stepped onto the back deck. Bail was quick, she called out. Good lawyers help. His voice carried that same smugness, but there was something harder underneath now. You know, Sheriff Blake, you should have just played along, lowered the fence, been a good neighbor. Is that what you told the Pattersons, the Washingtons before them, the Lees before that? Marcus's smile widened. I told them the truth. That property values are fluid. That neighborhoods change. That sometimes it's better to cash out than stand out. And if they didn't want to cash out, everyone has a price or a pressure point. A second car pulled into Marcus's driveway, the silver van from earlier. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out who could only be Vincent Cross. He was younger than Rachel had expected, maybe 45, with the kind of aggressive handsomeness that came from expensive dental work and a personal trainer. His suit probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. His shoes definitely did. Mrs. Blake, he called out, his voice carrying the false warmth of a salesman. I'm Vincent Cross. I understand there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Your employee threatened me with a weapon. Former employee, Cross corrected. Mr. Mitchell's actions this morning were entirely his own, excessive and regrettable, but profitable for you. Cross spread his hands. I'm a businessman. I see opportunities and I take them. Nothing illegal about that. Harassment is illegal. Threats are illegal. Impersonating law enforcement is illegal. Prove I knew about any of that. His smile was shark-like. I buy properties from willing sellers. What happens before they decide to sell is none of my business. Rachel stepped to the edge of the deck. It is now. Cross chuckled. Sheriff Blake, you have no jurisdiction over real estate transactions. And Marcus here, well, he's learned his lesson about impersonation. Haven't you, Marcus? Marcus nodded, his expression carefully neutral. So we all move forward, Cross continued. You enjoy your home with your lovely new fence, and if you ever decide to sell well, I pay excellent prices. We're not selling. Everyone says that. At first, He turned back to his van, then paused. Oh, your husband Jack, isn't it? Structural engineer with Morrison Engineering. They just got the contract for the new defense facility at Pendleton, didn't they? Big project, lots of sensitive information. He smiled again. Be a shame if there were any security concerns about the team members. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Cross climbed into his van and drove away. Marcus stood at the property line a moment longer. See you around, neighbor, he said, then walked back to his house. Rachel stood on the deck, mind racing. They'd just declared war whether she'd meant to or not, and Cross had made it clear he knew exactly where to apply pressure. We need to move fast, she said to Jack when she came back inside, before they regroup. Linda Patterson was still at the table, pale and shaking. Linda, I need names. Every family that was forced out, every family that's being pressured now. Can you do that? Linda nodded, new determination in her eyes. And Rachel turned to her husband. Call your boss. Tell him there might be security concerns raised about you. Get ahead of it. What are you going to do? Rachel pulled out her phone. What I should have done the moment Marcus Sterling showed up at our door. I'm going to war. The next 3 days moved with the precision of a military operation. Rachel had transformed their dining room into a command center. Laptops, phones, documents covered every surface. She worked 18-hour days, pausing only for coffee and the occasional sandwich Jack forced on her. Rodriguez arrived the second morning with 2 boxes of files. Every complaint filed in Oakwood Heights for the last 5 years, he said. You were right. The pattern's clear as day. They spread the documents out, color-coding them by type. Noise violations in blue, property violations in yellow, safety concerns in red. A rainbow of harassment. Look at the escalation pattern, Rachel said, tracing her finger across the timeline they'd built. It always starts small. Trash cans. Lawn height. Minor stuff with minor fines. Then it builds. Bigger violations, bigger fines. Then comes the safety concerns, suspicious activity, security risks. And then, Rodriguez asked, then comes the offer. Always from a different company, but always connected to Cross. Rodriguez whistled low. It's a beautiful scam. Evil but beautiful. It's more than a scam, Rachel said. Look at the families they target. She pulled up the list she'd been building. Military families. Defense contractors. Government employees with security clearances. They're not just stealing houses, Rodriguez said, understanding dawning. They're building a surveillance network. Exactly. Jack came in from the garage where he'd been on a conference call with his boss. How bad? Rachel asked. Not good. Someone sent an anonymous tip to the Defense Department about my wife's suspicious activities. They're reviewing my clearance. Rachel's expression hardened. Cross doesn't waste time. There's more, Jack said. Tom Morrison, my boss, he got a call from Sunset Holdings this morning. They want to buy the company. What? Offered 3 times its value. Cash. Tom's considering it. The pieces clicked in Rachel's mind. If Cross owns your company, he has access to every defense project you're working on, every blueprint, every security protocol. Tom won't sell, Jack said, but he didn't sound certain. Rachel stood pacing. We need to hit back, now, before he consolidates. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Sheriff Blake. Rachel. The voice was female, older, tentative. This is Diane Sterling, Marcus's wife, ex-wife as of this morning. Rachel put the phone on speaker, gesturing for silence. How can I help you, Diane? I think maybe I can help you. Can we meet? They met at a coffee shop in the next town over. Diane Sterling looked like she'd aged years and days. Her hands shook as she lifted her cup. I filed for divorce this morning, she said. After what Marcus did, what he tried to do, I can't anymore. You knew what he was doing. Diane's laugh was bitter. I knew he wasn't a real cop anymore. Knew about the fake HOA thing. But I thought it was just ego, men and their need to feel important. But it was more. So much more. Diane pulled out a flash drive. Marcus isn't careful at home. Leaves his laptop open. His passwords written on sticky notes. I started copying things months ago for the divorce I knew was coming. She slid the drive across the table. Everything's on there. Emails with Cross, payment records, the names of every plant they have in neighborhoods across the state. And Rachel, Diane leaned forward. It's not just California. Cross has operations in 12 states, all targeting military communities. Rachel pocketed the drive. Why are you giving this to me? Because I have 2 daughters. They're 7 and 9. And I don't want them growing up in a world where men like Marcus and Cross win. This could be dangerous for you. Diane stood. I'm leaving California tonight. My sister lives in Maine. Marcus doesn't know where. She started to leave, then turned back. There's something else. In the files, something about a shipment coming to Oakwood Heights. I don't know what, but Cross is very interested in it. After Diane left, Rachel sat in her car examining the flash drive. This was it. The evidence she needed, but also a target on her back if Cross found out she had it. She called Rodriguez. I need a federal contact, FBI, someone who specializes in domestic surveillance operations. I know someone. Sarah Chen. Worked with her on a joint task force last year. Set it up. Tonight if possible. She drove home to find the street unusually busy. 3 moving trucks were loading furniture from different houses. The Chens, the Nguyen's, the Johnsons, all leaving on the same day. Jack met her at the door. They all got letters this morning. Their employers received anonymous tips about security concerns. The Chen's restaurant suddenly failed a health inspection they've passed for 10 years. The Nguyen's got notice their son's college scholarship was under review. Cross is clearing the board, Rachel said. He's not being subtle anymore. Why the rush? Rachel thought about what Diane had said. A shipment coming to Oakwood Heights. Because something's happening, something big, and he needs control of this neighborhood when it does. That night while Jack slept, Rachel uploaded the contents of the flash drive to a secure server. The amount of information was staggering. 5 years of emails, bank records, contracts, and buried in it all, references to something called Operation Homestead. She was deep in the files when motion sensors in the backyard triggered. On her laptop screen, the camera feed showed 4 figures in dark clothing moving across the lawn. They weren't trying to hide. They wanted her to see them. Rachel grabbed her service weapon from the lockbox, checked the magazine, and chambered around. Then she did something that would have seemed crazy a week ago. She opened the back door and stepped out. Gentlemen, she called out, you're trespassing. The figures stopped. One stepped forward, and in the moonlight she recognized him. Not Marcus. One of his fake inspectors from the morning raid. Mrs. Blake. Mr. Cross would like to make you an offer. Not interested. You haven't heard it yet. The man pulled out an envelope, set it on the patio table. $1 million cash. You and your husband leave California. Tonight. Never come back. And if we refuse, the man shrugged. Your husband's company loses its defense contracts. His reputation is destroyed. You're framed for corruption, abuse of power, maybe worse. Your life becomes very difficult. Or you take the money and start over somewhere nice, maybe Hawaii, maybe Florida, somewhere far from here. Rachel kept her weapon at her side but visible. Tell Cross he can take his money, and glass shattered upstairs. Jack's shout of alarm cut through the night. Rachel spun toward the house, and that's when they moved, not toward her away. By the time she turned back, they were gone, melted into the shadows between houses. She ran inside, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Jack stood in their bedroom staring at the broken window. A brick lay on the floor, a note rubber banded to it. Last chance. Through the broken window, Rachel could see flames. The Chen's moving truck abandoned in their driveway was on fire. Sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors emerged from houses confused and frightened, and somewhere in the chaos Rachel knew Vincent Cross was watching. The war had escalated, and tomorrow she'd show him what happened when you threatened a sheriff in her own home. The next morning brought an army. Not Cross's people, Rachel's. FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen arrived at 7 sharp with a 6-person team. DEA sent 2 agents. California Department of Real Estate sent investigators. Even the IRS showed up, drawn by the financial crimes evident in Diane Sterling's files. They set up a mobile command post in the Blakes' driveway. Neighbors watched from windows as agents and windbreakers carrying boxes of equipment transformed the quiet street into something from a crime thriller. This is bigger than we thought, Agent Chen said, reviewing the files on multiple laptops. Cross isn't just running real estate fraud. He's created a private intelligence network, corporate espionage, on a massive scale. Rachel pointed to a series of emails. Look at these. He's selling information, security protocols from defense contractors, personnel files on military families, even shift schedules from the naval base. To whom? Shell buyers. But trace them back. Rachel pulled up another screen. Foreign corporations, some in countries that aren't exactly friendly. Agent Chen stood up straight. This just became a national security issue. That's not all, Rachel said. She'd found something in the early morning hours buried deep in financial records. The shipment Diane mentioned Cross has been preparing a property at the end of the street, the old Morrison place, installing underground cables, reinforced power lines, server-grade cooling systems. He's building a data center in a residential neighborhood hidden in plain sight. Agent Chen pulled out her phone. I need to make some calls. This is beyond FBI jurisdiction now. While Chen coordinated with various agencies, Rachel noticed unusual activity on the street, cars she didn't recognize, people walking dogs she'd never seen before, all trying to look casual, all failing. We have surveillance, she told Rodriguez. I see them. Cross's people. Or worse, if he's really selling to foreign entities. Her phone rang. Tom Morrison, Jack's boss. Rachel, I need to speak to Jack. It's urgent. She handed the phone to her husband, watched his face go pale as he listened. They did what? Jack said. Then, I'll be right there. He hung up, looking stunned. The Defense Department just suspended our contract. All work stopped immediately. They're citing security concerns about my connection to an ongoing federal investigation. Rachel felt the ground shift under her feet. Cross had just cost Jack's company millions, cost dozens of people their jobs. He's forcing Tom to sell, Jack said. Without that contract, the company's worthless, except to Cross, who'll swoop in and save everyone's jobs. Tom has no choice. The fury that rose in Rachel was cold and focused. She'd been playing defense, reacting to Cross's moves. Time to go on offense. She gathered the federal agents in her dining room. Cross expects us to build a case slowly by the book. Subpoenas, warrants, proper channels. That gives him time to destroy evidence, move assets, disappear if necessary. That's how we have to do it, Agent Chen said. No, that's how you have to do it. I'm the county sheriff. I have broader authority in matters of immediate public safety.
What are you thinking? Rachel smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm thinking Mr. Cross has properties in this neighborhood that need immediate safety inspections. Gas leaks, fire hazards, structural concerns, all requiring immediate entry. Rodriguez caught on first. And if we happen to find evidence of other crimes during these safety inspections, plain sight doctrine, Agent Chen finished. It's risky. So is letting him operate for one more day. They moved that afternoon. Rachel led the convoy sheriff's vehicles, code enforcement fire department, even the health department. Every house Cross owned in Oakwood Heights would be inspected simultaneously. The old Morrison place was her target. As they pulled up, she saw workers inside frantically moving equipment. Someone had warned them. Fire hazard inspection, she announced, badge visible. Everyone out, now. The workers scattered. Some ran for vehicles. Others just ran. Only one stood his ground, a thin man with nervous eyes and expensive clothes. You can't just, I need to call Mr. Cross. Call whoever you want, after you step outside. Inside the house had been gutted and transformed. Server racks lined the walls, cables snaked everywhere. The basement had been excavated and expanded, turned into a massive data center. Holy shit, Rodriguez said. This must have cost millions. Rachel moved through the rooms, documenting everything. In what had been the master bedroom, she found monitors displaying feeds from cameras she recognized. The Chen's house, the Nguyen's, the Pattersons, her own home. He's been watching everyone, she said. Agent Chen appeared in the doorway. Rachel, you need to see this. In the basement, behind a locked door they'd had to break down, was a room filled with filing cabinets, each drawer meticulously labeled with names, addresses, and security clearance levels. Rachel opened one at random. Inside were photographs, financial records, medical histories, even school reports on children.
The complete life of a Marine Corps major who'd lived 3 streets over until 6 months ago. He's not just gathering intel, Agent Chen said. He's building leverage files, blackmail material. Rachel's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You just destroyed everything. Hope it was worth it. Then another, check your home security. Rachel pulled up her home camera feeds on her phone. The house was empty. Jack still at his office dealing with the contract crisis. But something was wrong. The cameras were showing loops, the same 30 seconds of empty rooms repeating. She ran for her car, Rodriguez right behind her. They made it to her house in 3 minutes. The front door was open. Inside, the house had been ransacked. But it wasn't random destruction. It was targeted. Her laptop gone. The briefcase of documents gone. Every electronic device gone. And spray painted on the living room wall, you started this. Rachel stood in her violated home fury building, but also something else. Satisfaction. Because Cross had just made a fatal mistake. He'd committed a crime himself, personally, not through proxies or employees, but with his own hands. And she knew exactly how to prove it. Rodriguez, she said, remember those cameras I installed? The ones in the tree and... He stopped understanding. You have backups. Cloud storage. Uploaded every 30 seconds. She pulled out her phone, accessed the remote server. Cross might have looped the feeds, but he didn't know about the redundant system. On her phone screen, crystal clear, was Vincent Cross entering her home 40 minutes ago. Vincent Cross carrying out her laptop. Vincent Cross with the spray paint can. Got him, she said. But Rodriguez was looking past her out the window. Rachel. The street was filling with vehicles. Not police cars. Black SUVs with government plates. Men and women in dark suits emerged, moving with military precision. They surrounded the house. A woman stepped forward, older, authoritative. She held up credentials. Sheriff Blake, I'm Director Amanda Foster, National Security Agency. We need to talk about Vincent Cross. Director Amanda Foster sat in Rachel Blake's ransacked living room like she belonged there. Her team had swept the house for surveillance devices, found 14, destroyed them all. Now she pulled out a tablet, its screen showing satellite imagery of Oakwood Heights. Vincent Cross made a mistake, Foster said. He got greedy. Which mistake? Rachel asked. There have been so many. He started selling to the wrong people. Foster zoomed in on the data center at the Morrison place. 3 months ago, Cross made contact with Chen Wei, cultural attaché at the Chinese consulate in Los Angeles. Except Chen Wei isn't really a cultural attaché. Intelligence. MSS. Ministry of State Security. Cross has been selling him access to defense contractor personnel files. Names, addresses, clearance levels, personal vulnerabilities. Jack stood by the ruined wall where Cross had spray-painted his message. So this is espionage. Textbook. And that makes everyone involved subject to the Espionage Act. Foster looked at Rachel, including local law enforcement who might interfere with a federal operation. The threat was subtle but clear. Back off or be swept up in the investigation. Rachel stood. With respect, Director, I have 4 dozen families in this neighborhood who've been terrorized for months. What they deserve is for this to end, quietly. Without media attention, without trials that expose intelligence methods. You want to bury it. Foster's expression didn't change. I want to contain it. Cross has connections we're still mapping. If he realizes how much we know, those connections disappear. People disappear. Rodriguez stepped forward. So what, we just let him walk? No, we let him think he's won. Then we take him apart piece by piece. Foster stood. Sheriff Blake, I'm ordering you to cease all investigations into Vincent Cross effective immediately. You can't. I can. National security supersedes local authority. She headed for the door, then paused. Of course, if Mr. Cross were to commit additional crimes, say assault on a law enforcement officer, that would be a local matter. We couldn't interfere with that. The door closed behind her, leaving Rachel and Jack in their destroyed home. She just gave you permission, Rodriguez said after a moment. No, Rachel corrected. She just gave me an idea. Marcus Mitchell stood in his driveway washing a car that didn't need washing. He'd been out there for an hour watching the federal vehicles come and go. When Rachel approached, he didn't even pretend surprise. "Sheriff," he said, not looking up from his work. "Rough day." "We need to talk." "No, we don't." He finally met her eyes. "My lawyer says I shouldn't speak to you without representation present." "I'm not here as the sheriff." That got his attention. "Then what?" "I'm here as someone who just had her house destroyed by the same man who's been destroying yours." Marcus laughed bitter and sharp. "My house is fine." "Your life isn't. Cross owns you, your debts, your secrets, your future. When this crashes down and he'll throw you to the wolves, you'll take the fall for everything." "You don't know anything." Rachel pulled out her phone, showed him a photo from Diane's files. It was Marcus at a casino surrounded by empty bottles and IOU slips. 73,000 in gambling debts, paid off by Sunset Holdings. That's called bribery, Marcus. That's called conspiracy. His hand tightened on the hose. Or this one. Another photo. Marcus with a woman who wasn't Diane. The affair with Cross's assistant. Did you think he didn't know he's been holding it over you for 2 years? Stop. You're not his employee, Marcus. You're his property. And when the FBI starts making arrests, guess whose name is on every document, not his? Marcus threw down the hose. Water sprayed across the driveway. "What do you want?" "I want Cross, and you're going to help me get him." "You're insane. You know what he's capable of." "Better than you do. I know about Chen Wei. I know about the intelligence sales. I know the NSA is watching." Marcus went pale. The NSA. This isn't just real estate fraud anymore. It's espionage. That's life in federal prison, unless someone cooperates, unless someone helps bring down the network. Marcus looked around nervously. The street seemed empty, but they both knew appearances meant nothing here. "He'll kill me. He'll sacrifice you anyway. At least this way you have a chance." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "There's a meeting tonight." "Cross and some buyers. Big transaction." "Where?" "I don't know yet. He never tells me until the last minute, but—" Marcus hesitated. "He'll need me there. Security. He always wants intimidation." "Wear a wire." "He checks, sweeps everyone." Rachel thought quickly. "Then we do it different. You're going to pick a fight with me. Very public, very visible. Make Cross think you're completely on his side. And when you leave for the meeting, you're going to accidentally forget to turn off your phone's location sharing." Marcus looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "That's your plan." "Part of it." Rachel stepped closer. "The other part involves you hitting me." "What?" "Right now, in front of whoever's watching. Hit me, threaten me, make it look real. Give Cross a show that proves you're loyal." "You're serious. Dead serious. And Marcus, don't pull the punch. It needs to be convincing." Marcus stared at her. Then without warning, his fist connected with her jaw. Rachel went down hard, tasting blood. She'd been hit before, trained for it, but Marcus was stronger than he looked. Or angrier. "Stay away from me," Marcus shouted, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "You ruined everything, my family, my life." He stood over her, fists clenched, playing the role perfectly. Or maybe not playing. "This isn't over," he snarled, then stormed into his house. Rachel got to her feet, slowly aware of curtains twitching in windows. Good. Let them see. Let them talk. Let word get back to Cross that his enforcer had just assaulted the sheriff. Her phone buzzed. "Rodriguez, you okay?" She texted back, "Perfect. Get ready to move tonight." 6 hours later, Rachel sat in a surveillance van 3 blocks from Marcus's house. Her jaw was swollen purple, bruising spreading across her cheek. Rodriguez had wanted her to go to the hospital. She'd refused. His phone just went active, the tech specialist said, moving north on Oakwood Drive. They followed at a distance, tracking Marcus's phone as he drove through suburban streets toward the industrial district. Finally, he stopped at a warehouse near the port. "That's it," Rodriguez said. "Owned by Surprise, another cross-shell company." Through high-powered scopes, they watched Marcus enter the building. 10 minutes later, 3 more cars arrived. Then a van with diplomatic plates. "That's Chen Wei's vehicle," Agent Chen said over the radio. She'd insisted on being part of the operation despite Foster's warnings. "We're recording everything." Rachel adjusted her vest, checked her weapon. How many inside? Thermal shows 12, maybe 15. Too many for a normal business meeting. Unless the business is selling state secrets. They waited. 20 minutes. 30. Then Marcus's phone moved again, not in the warehouse, but outside. The emergency exit. He's running, Rodriguez said. No, Rachel realized. He's letting us in. She was out of the van before anyone could stop her. The emergency exit was propped open with a brick. Inside, a service corridor led toward voices angry and getting louder. Told you this was too risky, Cross's voice. You promised exclusive access. An accented voice, Chen Wei. Now the FBI is crawling everywhere. The situation is contained. Contained, your sheriff destroyed the data center. Months of work gone. Rachel crept closer. Rodriguez and 2 deputies behind her. Through a doorway she could see into the main warehouse space. Cross stood at a table covered with hard drives and documents. Chen Wei faced him, flanked by 2 men who were definitely not cultural attachés. Marcus stood to the side, trying to look invisible. We're done, Chen Wei said. The operation is blown. We can rebuild. I have other properties, other neighborhoods. No, Beijing is pulling the plug. You're too exposed now. Cross's face went red. You can't just walk away. I know too much. Which is why you're coming with us. The 2 men beside Chen Wei moved forward, not quite drawing weapons, but the threat was clear. I'm an American citizen. You can't. You're a traitor selling classified information. No one will look for you very hard. That's when Rachel moved. Nobody's going anywhere. She stepped into the room, weapon drawn, but not quite aimed. Behind her, Rodriguez and the deputies spread out. Sheriff Blake, Cross said, and she couldn't read his tone. Relief, fear, calculation. Chen Wei's men reached for weapons. Don't, Rachel said. You're surrounded. FBI, NSA, and half the sheriff's department are outside. Only question is whether you leave in handcuffs or body bags. It was a bluff. The FBI was outside but not in position. The NSA was probably watching by satellite, and she had exactly 3 deputies with her. Chen Wei smiled coldly. You're lying. Marcus, Rachel said, not looking at him. You want to add murder of a sheriff to your charges. Marcus moved then faster than anyone expected. He grabbed one of Chen Wei's men from behind, wrestling for his gun. The room exploded into chaos. The second man drew on Marcus. Rachel shot him center mass. He went down hard. Cross dove for cover behind the table. Chen Wei pulled a pistol, swinging toward Rachel. Rodriguez fired twice. Chen Wei spun and fell. The man Marcus was fighting broke free, raised his weapon. 3 shots from different directions took him down before he could fire. Then silence. Gun smoke and blood and silence. Clear, Rodriguez shouted. Clear, echoed from the deputies. Rachel kept her weapon on Cross, who was curled on the floor, hands over his head. Vincent Cross, you're under arrest for espionage, conspiracy assault, and about 30 other charges I'll think of later. I want immunity, Cross shouted. I'll testify. I know everything. That's not my call. She cuffed him perhaps tighter than necessary, but I doubt anyone's feeling generous. Marcus stood over the man he'd fought, breathing hard. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. I'm done, he said. Diane was right. I'm done with all of this. Sirens filled the air. Real FBI agents stormed in, followed by federal marshals, crime scene techs, and eventually Director Foster herself. She surveyed the scene with an expression Rachel couldn't read. 3 foreign intelligence operatives dead, 1 arrested, Vincent Cross in custody, and you, Sheriff Blake, at the center of it all. Just doing my job. No, you were doing my job. There will be consequences. I'll face them. Foster studied her for a long moment. Yes, I believe you will. The aftermath moved in waves. First came the medical. Rachel's jaw x-rayed Marcus's head, stitched everyone's statements taken while adrenaline still ran high. Then came the legal lawyers upon lawyers, federal and local, trying to sort out jurisdiction and charges, and who got credit for what. Finally came the media news vans lined up outside Oakwood Heights, reporters shoving microphones at anyone who'd talk the story growing and mutating with each telling. Rachel sat in her kitchen at 3 in the morning, holding ice to her jaw, watching news coverage on her laptop. Suburban spy ring exposed, read one headline. Sheriff's revenge after HOA harassment, read another. Jack sat beside her exhausted, but unable to sleep. Is it over? He asked. Cross is done. His network is blown. The families he drove out will get justice, maybe even their homes back. But Rachel shifted the ice pack. But Foster was right. There will be consequences. You can't embarrass federal agencies and walk away clean. What kind of consequences? Before she could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. Blake? Sheriff.
This is Deputy Director Harrison, FBI. I'm calling to inform you that you're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Investigation of what? Interference with a federal operation, excessive force, possible violation of the Espionage Act. That's ridiculous. That's protocol. Report to Federal Building tomorrow 0900. Bring your badge and weapon. The line went dead. Jack stared at her. They're punishing you for stopping Cross. They're punishing me for embarrassing them, for showing them up, for not playing by their rules. So Cross destroyed our lives, and now the government finishes the job. Rachel walked to the window. The street was quiet now. Media gone, neighbors asleep. It looked peaceful, normal, like none of this had happened. No, she said quietly. This isn't over. Rachel, Cross had help, not just Chen Wei, someone in government, someone who kept the FBI from investigating sooner, someone who made sure his properties were never properly examined. You think there's another player? She turned from the window. I know there is, and tomorrow when they try to bury me in bureaucracy, I'm going to find out who. The federal building downtown was a monument to institutional power, concrete and glass and the kind of security that made you feel guilty even with nothing to hide. Rachel arrived at 8:45, 15 minutes early. She'd worn her dress uniform, every medal and commendation she'd earned in 15 years of service. Let them see who they were railroading. The meeting room was on the 10th floor. Windows overlooking the city, a long table with 5 people already seated. Director Foster was there along with Deputy Director Harrison and 3 others Rachel didn't recognize. Sheriff Blake Harrison began. Please sit. She remained standing. I prefer to stand. Sit down, Sheriff. That's an order. From what authority FBI doesn't command local law enforcement? Harrison's face reddened. You killed 3 foreign nationals. You disrupted a year-long federal investigation. I stopped a spy ring that you missed. I saved classified defense information from being sold. I did your job. You got lucky. No, I got results. Foster raised a hand, silencing Harrison. Sheriff Blake, we're not here to debate. We're here to inform you of the consequences of your actions, which are, you're suspended indefinitely. Your department will be placed under federal oversight, and you'll be required to sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding all aspects of this case. No. The word hung in the air. Excuse me, Harrison said. No, I won't sign. I won't be silenced, and I won't let you bury this to save face. You don't have a choice. Rachel pulled out her phone, placed it on the table. On the screen was an email ready to send. This goes to every major news outlet in the country. The full story, Cross's network, Chen Wei's infiltration, and most importantly how the FBI had reports about Cross 2 years ago and did nothing. Foster leaned forward. You're bluffing. I have the emails. Cross kept everything, including his correspondence with Special Agent David Park. One of the unknown faces at the table went pale. Agent Park. Rachel continued, looking directly at him. Who took bribes from Cross to delay investigations? Who warned him about federal interest? Who's been on Cross's payroll for 3 years? Park stood abruptly. That's slander. You can't prove. Diane Sterling gave me everything, every payment, every text, every meeting. The room erupted. Harrison shouting about procedure. Park demanding a lawyer. Foster trying to restore order. Rachel picked up her phone.
Here's my offer, she said, cutting through the noise. I keep my job. My department stays independent. Park and anyone else involved faces justice. Or this goes public in 60 seconds. You're threatening the federal government, Harrison asked. I'm threatening corrupt individuals who happen to work for the government. Big difference. Foster stood slowly. Everyone out except Blake and me. Director Harrison started. Out now. They filed out reluctantly. Park had to be almost dragged. When the door closed, Foster and Rachel faced each other across the table. You're playing a dangerous game, Foster said. I'm not playing at all. Park is finished. We knew about him. We were building a case. Were you hoping it would go away quietly? Foster's expression gave nothing away. What do you want? Justice. For the families Cross destroyed. For my neighborhood. For everyone who got steamrolled because someone in power looked the other way. And for yourself. I want to go home. I want to do my job. I want my life back. Foster walked to the window, looked out at the city. Cross is talking, giving us names, operations, everything. With Park's communications, we can map the entire network. It's the biggest counterintelligence win in a decade. Congratulations. It's your win, Sheriff. You broke it open. Then why are we here? Foster turned back. Because you did it wrong. Outside channels, outside control. You made us look incompetent. You were incompetent. Yes, we were. The admission seemed to surprise them both. And that's why you'll keep your job, your department, your independence. Just like that. No, there are conditions. You sign a modified NDA, you can't discuss classified methods or ongoing operations, but you can talk about Cross, about the harassment, about the corruption. You testify when we need you. And Sheriff, if you ever have intelligence about national security threats, you come to me. Directly. Not through channels that might be compromised. Rachel considered. Deal. They shook hands. Foster's grip was firm, respectful. You know, Foster said, we could use someone like you at the federal level. Thanks, but I like where I am. In Oakwood Heights, after all this. Especially after all this. Those people are my neighbors, my community. They deserve someone who will fight for them. Foster smiled, the first genuine expression Rachel had seen from her. Then, they're lucky to have you. The drive home felt like emerging from a tunnel. The morning sun was bright traffic normal, the world spinning on as if nothing had happened. But in Oakwood Heights, everything had changed. The for sale signs were gone from the Chens, the Nguyen's, the Johnsons' houses. Families were moving back and some who'd been driven out months ago. The Pattersons were in their front yard, Bob Patterson waving as she passed. At the end of the street, the Morrison Place Cross's would-be data center was being demolished. Perfectly good house being torn down, but no one wanted to live where those crimes had been planned. Rachel pulled into her driveway to find Jack on a ladder patching the broken window. He climbed down when he saw her. How did it go? I still have a job. We still have a home. Park's going to prison. He pulled her into a hug, careful of her bruised jaw. So it's over. The Cross part is over. They went inside. The spray paint had been covered with primer, ready for fresh paint. The ransacked rooms had been straightened. It was starting to feel like home again. There's something else, Jack said. Tom called. The Defense Department reversed their decision. Our contracts are reinstated. Fuller even added a bonus for the disruption. That's great. And Marcus stopped by. Rachel raised an eyebrow. He's moving, selling the house, taking Diane and the girls somewhere fresh. He wanted to apologize for everything. He was a victim too. Cross preyed on his weaknesses. That's what I told him. They stood in their kitchen, looking out at the neighborhood they'd fought so hard to protect. Kids were playing in the street. Someone was mowing a lawn. Normal suburban life resuming. We could move, Jack said quietly. Start fresh somewhere else. Do you want to? Do you? Rachel thought about it. They could find another quiet suburb, another perfect house. Try again for the peaceful life they'd originally wanted. No, she said finally. This is our home. These are our people. We don't run. Even after everything. Especially after everything. That evening, the neighborhood held an impromptu gathering. Not organized, not planned, just people gravitating toward the small park at the center of Oakwood Heights. Someone brought hamburgers, someone else brought hot dogs. The Nguyen's contributed spring rolls as always. Music played from someone's speaker. Kids ran around with sparklers as the sun set. Rachel and Jack stood at the edge of the gathering watching. "Speech," someone called out. Others took up the chant. "Speech, speech." Rachel shook her head, but they insisted. Finally, she stepped forward. "I'm not good at speeches," she began, which got some laughs. "But I want to say this, what happened here wasn't about one bad person or one crime. It was about a community being tested, being divided, being threatened." Nods all around. "We failed that test at first. We let fear and suspicion turn us against each other. We let an outsider convince us not to trust our neighbors. But when it mattered, when the truth came out, this community stood up. You stood up. And that's what makes a neighborhood safe. Not fences or cameras or fake inspectors. People looking out for each other." Applause started built became something more than just clapping. It was acknowledgement, gratitude, community. Later, as the gathering wound down, Linda Patterson approached. "Rachel, we're starting a new HOA board. A real one. Transparent, accountable, focused on actually helping residents. Would you consider—" "No?" Rachel laughed. "I've had enough of HOA politics for a lifetime." "Fair enough, but if we need advice, always." As they walked home, Jack took her hand. "You know this won't be the last time," he said. "People like Cross, like Park, there are always more." "I know. So we stay ready. We stay ready." They reached their house, the one they'd fought so hard to keep. The fence that started it all still stood strong and legal, and theirs. "Tomorrow the paint crew comes," Jack said. "Cover up the last of the damage." "Good. What color did you choose?" "Same as before. No point changing what works." Rachel smiled. That was Jack, steady, practical, unchanging in the ways that mattered. They went inside, locked the door, and began the process of making their house a home again. But even as they settled in for a quiet evening, Rachel kept her phone close, kept her awareness sharp. Because Jack was right there would always be more threats, more predators, more battles to fight. For tonight, though, there was peace, hard-won and probably temporary, but peace nonetheless. And in Oakwood Heights, that was enough. The paint had barely dried on their repaired walls when the subpoenas started arriving. Rachel Blake stood in her kitchen sorting through the stack of legal documents that had accumulated over the past week. Federal court, state court, civil depositions, congressional inquiry, each one demanding her testimony about Vincent Cross Agent Park and the network they'd exposed. 23 separate cases, Jack said, reading over her shoulder. How is that even possible? Cross operated in 12 states. Every family he targeted is filing suit. Every transaction is being investigated. And everyone wants me to testify. The doorbell rang. Rachel tensed, a reflex she'd developed since the night Cross had ransacked their home. Through the peephole, she saw a young woman in a delivery uniform. "Certified mail," the woman said when Rachel opened the door. "Sign here, please." Another subpoena. This one different, the seal of the House Intelligence Committee. "They want me in Washington," Rachel said, reading quickly. "Closed session, next week. Can you refuse?" "Not this one." Jack's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. "Tom Morrison. The company's being audited. Federal investigators want every document related to defense contracts for the past 5 years. They're looking for security breaches. Cross's poison still spreading. Tom's thinking about selling, for real this time. Says he's too old for this kind of scrutiny." Rachel set down the congressional subpoena. Outside, she could see the Nguyen's replanting their garden, trying to restore what had been disrupted. The whole neighborhood was like that, healing but scarred. Her phone rang. Director Foster. "Sheriff, we have a problem." "What now?" "Marcus Mitchell is missing." Rachel's blood went cold. "What do you mean, missing?" "He was supposed to report to federal protection yesterday. Never showed. His family's gone too. No credit card use, no phone activity. They vanished." Cross's people. "That's what we're afraid of. Cross is in federal custody, but he still has resources, still has contacts. If Marcus was going to testify, he'd be a target." Rachel was already moving, grabbing her keys. I need everything you have on his last known location. Sheriff, this is federal jurisdiction. Marcus is my neighbor, was my neighbor. This started in my county. Foster sighed. I'm sending you what we have, but Rachel, be careful. If Cross's people have Marcus, they won't hesitate to remove any other threats. The line went dead. Rachel looked at Jack. I have to go. I know. He kissed her forehead. Be safe. She was halfway to her car when she noticed the van, white nondescript, parked 3 houses down. It hadn't been there an hour ago. Rachel changed direction, walking casually toward the park instead of her vehicle. The van's engine started. She pulled out her phone, pretending to text while actually taking photos. The van crept forward, maintaining distance. Instead of running, Rachel walked straight to the Pattersons' house. Linda answered immediately. Rachel? Everything okay? Linda. I need you to call 911. Report suspicious vehicle, possible child endangerment. White van license plate. She rattled off the number she'd photographed. Child endangerment. Trust me. Make the call. Loudly. Linda understood. She dialed, her voice carrying as she gave the report. Within minutes, sirens approached. The van peeled out, speeding away. But not before Rachel got clear photos of the driver. Her phone buzzed. Rodriguez. Units in pursuit of white van. What's going on? Someone's watching me. Maybe connected to Marcus Mitchell's disappearance. Mitchell's missing. As of yesterday, I'm heading to his house now. Not alone, you're not. Meet me there in 10. The Sterling house, she still thought of it that way, stood empty. The lawn was already growing wild. A realtor's lockbox hung on the door, but the sale sign had been removed. Rodriguez pulled up as she arrived. Neighbors say they left 3 nights ago, he reported. Middle of the night. Moving truck, everything pre-packed. That's after his meeting with Foster, after he agreed to testify. They approached the house carefully. The front door was locked, but Rachel noticed something, fresh scratches on the deadbolt. Someone's been here, she said. Rodriguez called for backup while Rachel circled the house. The back door stood slightly open, drift of leaves blown inside. They entered, weapons drawn. The house was empty, furniture gone, but someone had searched it, thoroughly. Drawers pulled out, closets emptied, even outlet covers removed. They were looking for something, Rodriguez said. In what had been Marcus's home office, Rachel found what the searchers had missed. A single USB drive taped inside the ventilation grate. Marcus left this for someone to find, she said. For us to find. They took the drive to the sheriff's station, opened it on an air-gapped computer. It contained videos, documents, recordings. Marcus had been documenting everything for months. Look at this, Rodriguez said, playing a video dated 3 weeks ago. On screen, Marcus sat in his office looking exhausted. If you're watching this, something's happened to me. Cross promised protection, new identities for my family, but I don't trust him. I've made my own arrangements. He held up documents. New identities I purchased myself. Clean, untraceable. We're going somewhere Cross will never find us. But first I'm leaving you everything. Every crime, every contact, every dirty secret. The video continued for an hour. Marcus detailing Cross's operation, naming names Rachel hadn't heard before. Judges, city officials, police commissioners in 3 states. This is bigger than we thought, Rodriguez said, and more dangerous. If Cross's people know Marcus has this... Her phone rang. Unknown number. Blake. Sheriff Blake. The voice was female, scared. This is Diane Sterling, Mitchell, whatever our name is now. Diane, where are you? I can't say. Marcus says nowhere is safe if I tell anyone, but I need your help. What's wrong? They found us. I don't know how. Marcus went out for groceries 2 hours ago. He hasn't come back. His phone's dead. I think they took him. Rachel's mind raced. Diane listened carefully. Take your daughters and go to the nearest police station. Any station. Tell them you need federal witness protection immediately. Marcus said not to trust. Marcus is gone. Your girls are what matter now. Go, right now. There's something else. Marcus said if anything happened, I should tell you about Willowbrook. What's Willowbrook? I don't know. He just said you'd understand, said it was Cross's endgame. The line went dead. Rachel immediately called Foster. Diane Sterling just contacted me. Marcus has been taken. Where is she? Wouldn't say, but she's heading to police protection with her daughters. I'll alert all stations. What else? She mentioned something called Willowbrook. Mean anything to you? There was a long pause. Willowbrook Estates, new development in Virginia, near Quantico, near the FBI Academy. Cross is expanding. Was. The development stalled 6 months ago. Funding issues. Rachel pulled up property records on her computer. Willowbrook Estates. 300 homes planned. Perfect suburban paradise. And every inch of it owned by shell companies connected to Vincent Cross. He was building his own neighborhood, she said. From scratch. Complete control from day one. With direct access to FBI families, federal agents, intelligence community. Foster, if he'd succeeded, he'd have had the ultimate intelligence gathering operation. Untouchable. Rachel noticed something in the property records. The development didn't just stall, it was shut down. Building violations, environmental concerns, all filed by... She stopped. By who? Special Agent David Park. Foster cursed. Park wasn't just taking bribes. He was a full partner. And when Cross got arrested, Park had to clean up loose ends, including Marcus. I'll mobilize teams. If Park has Marcus, he'll kill him the moment he sees FBI coming. This needs to be surgical. Rachel stood already planning. I know where Park's taking him. How? Because I know how these people think. They need Marcus to talk to give up whatever evidence he's hidden. They'll take him somewhere isolated, somewhere they control absolutely. Willowbrook. The construction site. 300 empty foundations. Perfect place to make someone disappear. Sheriff, you can't go after a federal agent, even a corrupt one. I'm not going after him. I'm responding to a kidnapping in progress. Local jurisdiction. Rachel. Get your teams ready. I'll call when I have him. She hung up before Foster could object. Rodriguez was already standing checking his weapon. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. Just the two of us against Park and whoever he's working with. No. Rachel pulled up her contacts. We're bringing backup. 40 minutes later, a convoy rolled out of Oakwood Heights. Rachel and Rodriguez in the lead, followed by 6 sheriff's vehicles. But that wasn't the backup that mattered. Behind them came 24 personal vehicles. Bob Patterson in his pickup, the Nguyen's in their SUV, Linda Patterson, the Johnsons, the Chens. Every family that had been targeted, threatened, driven from their homes. They didn't have to come, Rodriguez said. Yes, they did. This is their fight too. The drive to Virginia took 3 hours. As they crossed the state line, Rachel's phone buzzed. Foster, federal team standing by. Don't do anything stupid. The Willowbrook construction site sprawled across 50 acres of cleared land, skeletal frames of unfinished houses, deep foundation pits, construction equipment abandoned like dinosaur bones. They parked a quarter-mile away. Rachel gathered everyone around. This is dangerous. Park is a trained agent. He's desperate. And he has at least 3 others with him. She'd counted the vehicles at the site entrance. You don't have to. We're not leaving, Bob Patterson interrupted. That bastard tried to destroy our lives. We're seeing this through. Nods all around. Then here's what we do. You create a distraction at the main entrance. Loud, visible. Make them think it's a mob. Rodriguez and I go in the back, find Marcus. How will you know where he is? Rachel pointed to the one structure with lights on a construction trailer at the center of the site. Park's not subtle. They moved at dusk. The neighbors drove to the main gate, horns blaring, voices shouting, demanding answers about the abandoned development. Security lights flashed on. Guards emerged from the trailer. Rachel and Rodriguez slipped through a gap in the fence, moving between foundation pits toward the trailer. Through a window, she could see Park pacing. Another man sat tied to a chair. Marcus. Bloody but alive. They could hear Park shouting through the thin walls. Where's the evidence? Where did you hide it? Marcus's response was unclear, muffled. The sound of a fist hitting flesh. Rachel had heard enough. She nodded to Rodriguez. They positioned themselves at opposite ends of the trailer. On her signal, Rodriguez kicked in the back door while she came through the front. Federal Agent Park spun, drawing his weapon. Rachel shot him in the shoulder. He went down, gun skittering across the floor. Two other men in the trailer reached for weapons. Rodriguez dropped one with a taser. Rachel tackled the other, a brief struggle ending with him unconscious on the floor. Park writhed, clutching his shoulder. "You shot a federal agent." "I shot a kidnapper." Rachel cuffed him, perhaps rougher than necessary. "Who happens to be a federal agent?" She cut Marcus free. He sagged forward, coughing blood. "Took you long enough," he wheezed. "Traffic was terrible." Sirens filled the air. Real federal agents this time, Foster's teams moving in. The neighbors at the gate cheered as agents arrested the guards. Marcus grabbed Rachel's arm. "Diane, my girls. They're safe. Federal protection." He nodded, tears cutting through the blood on his face. "There's more," he said. Park wasn't the only one. Cross had people everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, even, he coughed, wincing, even someone in the sheriff's department. Rachel felt ice in her veins. "Who?" "I don't know. Cross called them his insurance policy. Said even if you took him down, this person would make sure you paid for it." Paramedics arrived, loading Marcus onto a stretcher. As they carried him out, he gripped Rachel's hand. "I'm sorry for everything. You helped stop him. That's what matters." "No, I helped create him. Every family I intimidated, every person I drove away, I made Cross possible. And then you helped destroy him." Marcus closed his eyes. "I hope that's enough." As the ambulance pulled away, Foster approached. "Park is talking, trying to make a deal, says he has names, dates, the whole network." "Do you believe him?" "I believe he's desperate enough to sell out anyone." Rachel looked around the abandoned development. Millions of dollars wasted. Hundreds of lives that would have been destroyed if Cross had succeeded. What happens to this place? Government will seize it. Asset forfeiture, probably auction it off to legitimate developers. Make sure they do background checks this time. Foster actually smiled. "We will." The neighbors were gathering, exhausted but triumphant. They'd driven 3 hours face down armed guards to help save a man who'd terrorized them. "That's community," Rodriguez said, watching them. "That's justice," Rachel corrected. The drive back to Oakwood Heights was quiet. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Rachel's shoulder ached where she'd hit the ground tackling Park's associate. Rodriguez drove while she dozed. Her phone woke her. "Jack." "You're all over the news," he said. "Suburban sheriff leads raid on federal agent. Accurate if not complete." "Are you okay?" "Tired, sore, but okay." "When will you be home?" "Hour, maybe." "Good. There's something you need to see." The something was a package on their doorstep. No postmark, no delivery label, just her name written in careful script. Inside was a single photograph and a note. The photograph showed Rachel at age 23 in FBI training gear standing next to a younger Vincent Cross. Both smiling, both wearing academy badges. The note was short. "You don't remember me, but I remember you. We're not done. VC." Rachel stared at the photo. She'd been at the academy for a special joint training program before she'd chosen local law enforcement over federal. She vaguely remembered Cross, ambitious, charming, always working an angle. "You knew him?" Jack asked. "Barely. We were in the same training class for 3 weeks. I hadn't thought about it in 20 years. But he remembered you, apparently." She turned the photo over. On the back, in different handwriting, "Check your department. Check deep. A friend." Marcus said Cross had someone in my department. "You believe him?" Rachel thought about her deputies. Good people, most of them there for years. But Cross was patient. He played long games. "I have to." Her phone rang. "Rodriguez." "Boss, you need to see the news." She turned on the television. Breaking news banner, Federal Agent David Park found dead in cell. The reporter was breathless with speculation. Park was awaiting transfer to federal prison when guards found him unresponsive. Officials are calling it suicide, but sources suggest Rachel turned it off. "Cross is cleaning house," she said, "from federal prison. He ran a network for years. You think prison walls stop that?" Jack took her hands.
What do? We stay vigilant, we watch everyone, and we wait for his next move. That's it. We just wait. No, tomorrow I start investigating my own department, quietly, carefully. Someone's been feeding cross information for years. Someone's still out there. And if you find them, Rachel's expression was hard as granite. Then Vincent Cross learns what happens when you threaten my home twice. That night, unable to sleep, Rachel sat in her home office studying the photograph. Young Cross, young her others, she barely remembered. Who else from that class had ended up in position to help him? Who else had he corrupted over the years? Her computer dinged. New email. No sender address. A single line. Building 7, tomorrow, midnight. Come alone, or Marcus's family dies. Rachel stared at the screen. Building 7 was an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. Obviously a trap. Obviously dangerous. Obviously where she'd have to go. She deleted the email, cleared her browser history, then began preparing. Weapons. Body armor. Backup plans. Because someone wanted her dead. Someone connected to Cross but not in custody. Someone with enough power to reach Marcus's family even in federal protection. Someone in her own department. Tomorrow night she'd find out who. Building 7 loomed against the night sky like a dead tooth in the industrial district's mouth. Rachel Blake sat in her unmarked car 3 blocks away, watching the structure through binoculars. No movement, no lights, nothing to suggest the trap waiting inside. She'd told no one about the email. Not Jack, not Rodriguez, not Foster. The threat against Marcus's family had been explicit: come alone or they die. But Rachel hadn't survived 15 years in law enforcement by walking blind into ambushes. She'd spent the day quietly investigating her own department. Financial records, phone logs, shift patterns, looking for anomalies, connections to Cross's network. 32 deputies, civilian staff, support personnel. Any of them could be the mole, or none of them. The email could be a hoax, Cross playing games from his federal cell. Her phone showed 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes. Rachel checked her equipment one last time. Body camera recording to a cloud server, GPS tracker sewn into her jacket lining, backup piece in her ankle holster, and in her pocket a small device Rodriguez didn't know she'd borrowed, a panic button that would send her location to every law enforcement agency in 50 miles. She wouldn't use it unless absolutely necessary. Marcus's family was at stake. 11:55 p.m. Rachel left her car, moving through shadows toward Building 7. The industrial district was deserted this time of night, perfect for an execution, perfect for making someone disappear. The main door stood open. An invitation, or a dare. She entered, weapon drawn but low. The warehouse stretched into darkness, machinery covered in dust sheets like ghosts. Her footsteps echoed despite her efforts at silence. "Right on time, Sheriff." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Speakers hidden around the space. "I'm here," Rachel called out. "Show yourself." "First, your weapon. Toss it." "No." A pause. Then a different sound, a child crying, young, terrified. "That's Marcus's youngest daughter," the voice said. 7 years old, scared, missing her daddy. Want to hear what happens if you don't cooperate? Rachel's jaw clenched. She set her service weapon on the ground, kicked it away. The backup piece, too. She removed the ankle gun, sent it sliding into darkness. "Good. Now walk to the center of the warehouse. There's a chair waiting." The chair sat in a pool of light from a single overhead bulb. Rachel approached slowly, scanning for threats. As she sat, figures emerged from the shadows, 4 of them wearing masks. One stepped forward, and Rachel recognized the build, the walk, before he pulled off his mask. Deputy Chief Tom Harrison, her second in command for 3 years. "Hello, Rachel." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Harrison had been her mentor when she first made sheriff. He'd backed every decision, supported every initiative. "Tom." Her voice was steady despite the rage building inside. "How long?" "From the beginning. Cross recruited me 5 years ago, before you were even elected." "Why?" "Why does anyone do anything? Money. My daughter's medical bills were crushing me. Cross offered a solution. Selling out your badge. Selling information, who was being investigated, where raids were planned, which families were vulnerable.
Harrison pulled up a chair, sat facing her. You were never supposed to be a problem. Cross had plans for other neighborhoods. Then you moved to Oakwood Heights. And you couldn't warn him about me, couldn't blow your cover. I tried to steer you away. Those times I suggested you let the HOA handle things, that was me trying to protect you. You mean protect Cross? Harrison shrugged. Both. One of the masked figures spoke, female voice. Enough talking. Do it. Harrison stood, pulled out his service weapon. I'm sorry, Rachel, you're a good cop, great sheriff. But Cross owns too many people. Even in federal prison, he has reach. The only way this ends is with you gone. And Marcus's family. Already safe. We never had them. Just needed you here. Rachel laughed. It started low, built into something that made Harrison step back. What's funny? You think I came alone, Tom? His confidence wavered. You had to. The message said, come alone or Marcus's family dies. But I knew you didn't have them because I've had federal protection watching them since yesterday. Harrison raised his weapon. Doesn't matter, you're still... The warehouse lights blazed on. All of them. The space filled with tactical officers, FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals. Red laser dots danced across Harrison and his associates. Federal agents, weapons down now. Harrison spun, looking for an exit. There wasn't one. Every door had agents pouring through. He turned back to Rachel, gun still raised. You set me up. No, Tom. You set yourself up 5 years ago. I'll take you with me. No, Rachel said quietly. You won't. Foster's voice echoed through the warehouse speakers. She'd been listening the whole time. Deputy Chief Harrison, you're surrounded by 30 federal agents. Lower your weapon. Harrison's hand shook. The gun wavered between Rachel and his own temple. Don't, Rachel said. Your daughter needs you alive. My daughter thinks I'm a hero. Then be one. Put the gun down. Testify against Cross. Help us unravel this network. For a moment, she thought he might do it. His arms started to lower. Then one of the masked figures moved, pulling a weapon. Shots erupted. Harrison spun and fell. The masked figure dropped a second later, taken down by federal agents. Rachel dove from the chair, rolling behind machinery as bullets sparked off metal. The warehouse became a war zone for 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Then silence. Clear, voices called from around the space. Rachel emerged to find Harrison on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. She knelt beside him, applying pressure to the wound in his chest. Why? She asked. Harrison coughed, blood on his lips. Wasn't supposed to... like this. Help is coming. Hold on. He gripped her hand. Cross has more. Virginia, Texas, Nevada, whole neighborhoods. We'll find them. Rachel, his voice was fading. Tell my daughter. Tell her. He was gone before he could finish. Rachel stood slowly as paramedics rushed in. Foster approached, stepping carefully around the blood. You okay? No. That was brave coming here. That was stupid, but necessary. Foster looked at Harrison's body. 5 years. He was feeding Cross information for 5 years. Every case that went sideways, every investigation that stalled, now we know why. There'll be an inquiry. Internal Affairs will note. I know. Rachel was already walking toward the exit. I'll give them everything. Outside, the industrial district was no longer deserted. Media vans were arriving, drawn by the gunfire and sirens. Tomorrow the story would explode across headlines again. Corruption in the sheriff's department. Another layer of Cross's network exposed. Rachel's phone rang. Jack. I'm watching the news, he said. Are you? I'm alive. Harrison. Dead. Silence on the line. Then, come home. Home. The word felt strange after everything, but she drove there anyway, through empty streets, past dark houses, back to Oakwood Heights. The neighborhood was quiet, but not asleep. Porch lights were on. Neighbors standing in driveways watching her return. Word had already spread. Bob Patterson met her at her driveway. We heard, he said simply, about Harrison. I'm sorry, I should have known. Should have. Stop. Linda Patterson joined them. You exposed him. You stopped him. That's what matters. Others gathered, the Nguyens, the Johnsons, the Chens, her neighbors, her community offering silent support. We're having a meeting tomorrow, Bob said. Whole neighborhood, to figure out how to move forward. I might not be sheriff much longer. After this, then we'll figure that out too. Together. They dispersed slowly, reluctantly. Rachel went inside to find Jack waiting with coffee and a first aid kit. You're hurt, he said, noticing blood on her sleeve. Not mine. He cleaned the blood away anyway, gentle and thorough. So what happens now? Rachel thought about Harrison's dying words. More neighborhoods, more states, Cross's network spreading like cancer. Now we dig out the rest of the rot. Every connection, every corrupt official, every targeted family. That could take years. Then it takes years. Jack studied her face. You can't do this alone. I won't be alone. Foster's mobilizing a task force, multi-agency, multi-state, and she wants me to run it. Leave the sheriff's department. Temporarily. 6 months, maybe a year, until we've dismantled everything Cross built. And then I come home. Back to Oakwood Heights, back to being sheriff if they'll have me. They will. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. She sat in her office mapping Cross's network based on Harrison's files and dying words. Virginia 3 developments near military bases. Texas subdivisions outside Fort Hood and Lackland. Nevada communities near Nellis and Area 51. Pattern after pattern. Always targeting those with security clearances. Always using HOAs as weapons. Always corrupting local law enforcement. Her computer dinged. New email. This time the sender was identified Vincent Cross Federal Detention Center. Congratulations on finding Harrison. He was always the weakest link. But you still don't see the full picture. You stopped one operation. I have 12 more. You arrested one version of me. I've trained dozens. This doesn't end with me in prison. It evolves, adapts, grows. See you soon. VC. Rachel deleted the email, but the words lingered. Cross was right about one thing: this was bigger than one man, one neighborhood, one conspiracy. Her phone buzzed. Foster. We found something in Harrison's house. You need to see this. 20 minutes later, Rachel stood in Harrison's home office while federal agents cataloged evidence. Foster handed her a leather journal. He documented everything, every payment, every contact, every operation. Rachel flipped through pages of meticulous notes. Names she recognized, names she didn't. A web of corruption spanning years. This is enough to prosecute 50 people, Rachel said. At least. But look at the last entry. Rachel turned to the final written page dated yesterday. Tomorrow Rachel dies and phase 2 begins. Cross says the foundations are already in place. Says even from prison he can activate the network. Says Willowbrook was just practice. The real target was always Crystal Springs. What's Crystal Springs? Rachel asked. Foster pulled up a map on her tablet. New development. Started construction last month. In Maryland. Near what? NSA headquarters, CIA, the Pentagon. It's positioned to be the ultimate intelligence gathering hub. And it's already being built. 300 homes. First families move in next month. Rachel stared at the map. Each home a potential surveillance post. Each family a potential target or asset. We have to stop it. It's completely legal, clean money, legitimate developers, at least on paper. Then we dig deeper, follow Harrison's notes, find the connections. Foster nodded. That's why I need you on the task force. You understand how Cross thinks, how he operates. When do we start? Tomorrow. Unless... Foster hesitated. There's something else. Cross has made a deal. Information in exchange for minimum security placement. You can't be serious. 20 years instead of life. Protective custody. He gives us everything: names, accounts, methods. He's playing you. Maybe. But without his cooperation, dozens of operations keep running. Hundreds of families stay at risk. Rachel felt fury rising. After everything Cross had done, he was still manipulating the system. Fine, but I want to be there when he talks. Every session, every detail. That can be arranged.
Rachel looked around Harrison's office one more time. Photos of him in uniform, commendations, a career built on lies. Tom was a good cop once, she said, before Cross got to him. They all were. That's what makes this so insidious. Cross didn't recruit criminals. He created them. The next morning, Oakwood Heights held its promised meeting. The community center was packed. Rachel sat in the back trying to be invisible, but everyone knew she was there. Bob Patterson stood at the podium. "We've been through hell," he began. "Harassment, intimidation, betrayal. Our neighborhood was turned into a battlefield, but we survived. We fought back, and we won." Applause rippled through the room. But winning isn't enough. We need to make sure this never happens again. Not here, not anywhere. Linda Patterson joined him. "We're proposing a new kind of HOA, not one that rules over residents, but one that protects them. Full transparency, rotating leadership, and a permanent liaison with law enforcement." "We want Sheriff Blake in that role," someone called out. Rachel stood. "I'm honored, but I need to tell you something. I'm taking a temporary position with a federal task force to hunt down the rest of Cross's network. I could be gone for months." Murmurs through the crowd. "But," she continued, "I'll still be working to protect this community and every community like it. What happened here is happening across the country. We can stop it, but only if we work together." "What do you need from us?" Mr. Nguyen asked. "Vigilance, communication. If you see something suspicious, report it. If someone new moves in and starts talking about security, about protecting the neighborhood, dig deeper. Check credentials. Ask questions. Trust but verify," Rodriguez added from beside her. "Exactly." The meeting continued for 2 hours. Plans were made, committees formed. A neighborhood reborn from trauma into something stronger. As people filed out, Mrs. Chen approached Rachel. "My nephew lives in Crystal Springs, the new development. Should I warn him?" "Yes. Tell him to be careful. Watch for suspicious neighbors. Document everything." "You think Cross's people are already there?" "I know they are." That afternoon, Rachel stood outside the federal detention center preparing to face Vincent Cross for the first time since his arrest. Foster waited beside her. "Remember, he's going to try to get in your head. Personal attacks. Mind games." "I know." "And Rachel, he specifically requested you be present. This is what he wants." "Then let's give him what he wants and use it against him." They entered through multiple security checkpoints, down sterile corridors, into an interview room with reinforced glass and recording equipment. Vincent Cross sat shackled to a metal table, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. Prison had aged him, or maybe Rachel was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the charismatic businessman, but the predator underneath. He smiled when he saw her. "Sheriff Blake, you look well. How's the jaw? I heard Marcus hits hard." She sat across from him, expression neutral. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Cross. You have information. Share it. Straight to business. I always admired that about you." He leaned forward. "Did you ever wonder why I chose Oakwood Heights? Strategic location, military families." "No, because you were there." Rachel kept her face blank, but Foster shifted beside her. Cross continued, "That training program, 20 years ago. You probably don't remember the evaluation exercise. Urban planning, neighborhood dynamics. You wrote a paper on how HOAs could be weaponized against residents." Memory stirred. "A theoretical exercise. Academic." "You gave me the blueprint," Cross said. "Your paper outlined everything, how to use rules as weapons, how to turn neighbors against each other, how to force sales through escalating pressure." "That was theoretical." "That was genius. I built an empire on your ideas." Rachel felt sick. Had she really created this monster? "Of course," Cross continued. "I improved on the concept, added layers you never imagined, but the foundation, that was all you." "You're lying." Cross turned to Foster. "Check the Academy records. 2004, Joint Training Program. Paper title, Homeowner Associations as Potential Vectors for Social Control. Author, Rachel Blake." Foster made a note. "So you see," Cross said, "we're partners in this. Creator and creation. You can't destroy me without destroying part of yourself." Rachel stood.
You're wrong. I wrote about vulnerabilities so they could be fixed. You exploited them. That's the difference between us. Is it? How many rules have you bent? How many laws have you skirted to catch me? We're the same Rachel, both willing to do whatever it takes. No, I protect people. You prey on them. Semantics. Rachel leaned across the table. Crystal Springs. Tell us about Crystal Springs. Cross's smile widened. Ah, Tom told you about that before he died. Poor Tom. Always too emotional for this work. The development is active. Families moving in soon. Indeed. Your people are already there. Are they? Or am I just saying that to make you paranoid, to make you investigate innocent families, to destroy another community with suspicion? Rachel saw the game now, truth mixed with lies. Real threats and false ones, keeping them chasing shadows while the real operation continued. Give us names, Foster demanded. Certainly. Cross rattled off a dozen names. Of course, some of those are completely innocent. Others are deep cover. You'll have to investigate all of them, disrupt all their lives, become the very thing you claim to fight against. You're stalling. I'm cooperating, exactly as agreed. He looked at Rachel. You know there's a house available in Crystal Springs, perfect for a sheriff and her engineer husband. You could move there. Watch from the inside. Pass. Pity. It would have been poetic, you stopping the network you helped inspire. The interview continued for 3 hours. Cross provided information, addresses, bank accounts, names, but always with that smirk. Always with the suggestion that some of it was false. Finally, Foster called an end. As they stood to leave, Cross spoke once more. Rachel, that paper you wrote, I had it framed, hung in every office I ever used. My inspiration, my North Star. Then you misread it. The paper ended with recommendations for preventing exactly what you did. Did it, or did you add that after seeing what I accomplished? Memory is so unreliable. Outside the prison, Rachel breathed deep, trying to clear the poison of Cross's words from her lungs. I need to see that paper, she told Foster. Already requested it. Rachel, even if what he said is true, it changes nothing. He made his choices. But doubt gnawed at her as they drove back to Oakwood Heights. Had her academic work really inspired Cross's crimes? How many families had suffered because of ideas she'd put into the world? At home. Jack was cooking dinner. Normal. Domestic. A stark contrast to the darkness she'd been swimming in. How was he? Jack asked. Manipulative, dangerous, even in chains. But talking. Oh, he's talking. The question is, how much is true? But Jack set down his spatula, pulled her into a hug. Whatever he said, whatever mind games he played, remember you stopped him. You saved our neighborhood. Did I create the threat in the first place? She explained about the paper Cross's claims. Jack listened without judgment. So what if you identified a vulnerability 20 years ago you were training to protect people? He chose to exploit it. That's on him, not you. I know, logically I know, but he got in your head, which was his goal. Rachel's phone buzzed. Rodriguez. Boss, we have a situation. 3 families just moved into Crystal Springs, all with military connections, all referred by the same real estate agent. Who's the agent? Sandra Williams, no record of her existing before 6 months ago. Another false identity, another piece of Cross's network. I'm on my way. Rachel, Jack said as she grabbed her keys, be careful. This feels like another trap. Everything's a trap now, but we spring them anyway. She drove toward Crystal Springs as the sun set, painting the sky blood red. In her rearview mirror, Oakwood Heights receded but didn't disappear. Her home, her community. Safe for now. But ahead lay Crystal Springs and dozens of other neighborhoods, each one a potential battlefield, each one filled with families who had no idea they were targets. Cross was right about one thing: this didn't end with his arrest. It had only begun. Her phone rang. Foster. Rachel, I just got word. 3 more developments identified: Illinois, Colorado, North Carolina, all with Cross connections. Then we'd better get to work. The task force meets tomorrow. Full briefing at 8. I'll be there. Rachel drove on through gathering darkness toward whatever threats waited in Crystal Springs and beyond. She thought about Cross in his cell smiling playing his games even from behind bars. He'd said they were the same, both willing to do whatever it takes. Maybe he was right about that part, but Rachel fought for her community, for families, for home, and that made all the difference. 6 months later, Rachel Blake stood in a federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., watching Vincent Cross take the stand. He wore a suit instead of prison orange, part of his deal, but the shackles remained. His testimony would convict 43 co-conspirators across 12 states. "State your name for the record," the prosecutor said. "Vincent Marcus Cross." "Mr. Cross, you've pled guilty to conspiracy, fraud, espionage, and racketeering. Is that correct?" "Yes." "In exchange for your testimony, you've received a reduced sentence of 20 years minimum security. Is that correct?" "Yes." Rachel sat in the gallery between Foster and Rodriguez. Over the past 6 months, they dismantled Cross's network piece by piece. Crystal Springs had been the first to fall 12 arrests on day one. Then Illinois, Colorado, North Carolina. Each operation revealed another layer, another connection. "Mr. Cross says," the prosecutor continued, "can you identify the person who ran your Texas operation?" Cross pointed to a woman in the defendant's chair. Sandra Williams, or rather, Sarah Brennan, former real estate agent turned criminal mastermind. Sarah recruited vulnerable families, identified targets, and managed local assets. By assets, you mean corrupted officials? Yes, police, city council members, code enforcement, anyone with power over property owners. The testimony droned on. Facts, figures, names. Rachel had heard it all before in preparation. But the gallery was packed with victims' families who'd lost homes, careers, destroyed lives, upended. They deserved to hear Cross admit his crimes. During a recess, Marcus Mitchell approached. He looked healthier, the haunted look finally gone from his eyes. "Sheriff Blake?" "Marcus? How's the family?" "Good, safe. The girls are in school. Diane's working again." He paused. "We're testifying tomorrow." "I know. I wanted to thank you for saving me that night, for giving me a chance to make things right. You saved yourself when you chose to help us." Marcus glanced at Cross being led out in chains. He owned me for so long. Seeing him like this, it's surreal. He's just a man. Always was. We just let him convince us otherwise. That evening, Rachel met Foster at a bar near the courthouse. The task force was officially disbanding next week, their mission complete. "So what's next?" Foster asked. "Back to Oakwood Heights. Tomorrow, the county commissioners meet Monday to discuss my reinstatement. Think they'll approve. Rodriguez has been running things well. They might want to keep him." "That's not what I asked," Rachel smiled. "The community wants me back. That carries weight." Foster slid a folder across the table. "Before you decide, look at this." Inside was a job offer, federal position, director of a new task force focused on preventing exactly what Cross had done. National scope, unlimited resources. "You'd be perfect for it," Foster said. "It's a good offer. But I'm a sheriff, local law enforcement. That's where I belong." Foster nodded like she'd expected that answer. "If you change your mind." "I won't, but thank you." They drank in comfortable silence, two warriors at the end of a long campaign. "You know Cross will be out in 15 with good behavior," Foster said. "I know. He'll try again, maybe not the same way, but then we'll stop him again." "We," Rachel stood, left money on the bar. There's always a we. That's what Cross never understood. He thought isolation made people weak, but it just makes them find each other. The drive back to California took 3 days. Rachel could have flown, but she needed the time to decompress to shift from federal task force leader back to county sheriff. She stopped at 7 neighborhoods along the way, former targets of Cross's network. In each one, she met with families who'd fought back communities that had survived. In Nevada, the Hendersons had turned their HOA into a model of transparency. In Arizona, the Washingtons had started a nonprofit helping harassment victims. In New Mexico, an entire subdivision had banded together to buy out Cross's properties and turn them into community centers. Each stop reminded her that victory wasn't just about arrests and convictions. It was about resilience, recovery, rebuilding. When she finally crested the hill overlooking Oakwood Heights, the neighborhood looked exactly as she'd left it. Tidy lawns, kids on bikes. Normal. But she knew better now. Normal was fragile. Normal required vigilance. Jack was waiting on the porch, 2 cups of coffee steaming in the morning air. "Welcome home," he said. She kissed him long and deep, tasting coffee and commitment. "How was the trial?" "Productive. Cross gave up everyone. Think it's really over." "This part is." They sat on the porch swing, watching the neighborhood wake up. Bob Patterson emerged to get his paper waved when he saw them. The Nguyen's daughter rode past on her bike streamers flying from the handlebars. "The commissioners meet Monday," Jack said. "I know. Rodriguez wants you to have your job back. Said so publicly. He's a good man." The whole neighborhood signed a petition, even people who moved here after everything happened. Rachel smiled. "That's community." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then recognized the federal prison prefix. "Blake." "Hello, Sheriff." Cross's voice smooth as ever despite the poor connection. "I heard you're returning to your quiet life. How did you never mind? I wanted to congratulate you. You won. Completely. My network is destroyed, my fortune seized, my freedom gone. What do you want, Cross? To tell you something, a gift from one professional to another." Rachel waited. "Check your email." The line went dead. She opened her email. One new message, no subject line. Inside was a single link to a real estate listing, a new development, in Oregon. 300 homes, strategic location near military installations. The developer's name was unfamiliar, but the layout, the structure, the targeting, it was all familiar. "Someone else is using your playbook," Jack said, reading over her shoulder. Rachel studied the listing, then deleted it. "Aren't you going to report it?" Jack asked. "To who, Foster?" "The FBI. They have the information already." "Then why send it to you?" "Because Cross wants me to know it's not over. That his ideas have spread, that there will always be another threat. And," Rachel stood, went inside to pour fresh coffee. Through the kitchen window, she could see the fence that had started everything. 6 feet of wrought iron that had seemed so important once. And he's right. There will always be predators, always be vulnerable communities. The work never really ends. So what do? We stay ready, we stay connected, we protect what's ours. Monday's meeting was packed. The county commissioners sat at their elevated bench while the gallery overflowed with Oakwood Heights residents and sheriff's department personnel. "We're here to discuss the reinstatement of Sheriff Rachel Blake," the chairman announced. "Sheriff Blake, would you like to address the commission?" Rachel stood. "Commissioners, 6 months ago, I left to help dismantle a criminal network that threatened communities across the country. That work is complete. Now I'm requesting to return to the job I was elected to do, protecting this county." "Your absence created complications," Commissioner Wright said. "Deputy Chief Rodriguez had to assume your duties with no warning." Rodriguez stood. "If I may, Commissioner, Sheriff Blake's work on the federal task force protected our county more than anything she could have done here. She stopped a threat we didn't even know existed." "There's also the matter of former Deputy Chief Harrison," another commissioner said. "His corruption occurred under your watch." "Yes, it did. And I take responsibility for not seeing it sooner, but I also took responsibility for stopping him." The crowd murmured approval. "We'll take a brief recess to deliberate," the chairman said. The recess lasted 7 minutes. "By unanimous vote, Sheriff Rachel Blake is reinstated, effective immediately." The gallery erupted in applause. Rachel stood, accepted her badge from Rodriguez, and faced her community. "Thank you for your trust. I promise to continue earning it every day." After the meeting, the Oakwood Heights contingent gathered in the parking lot. The Pattersons, the Nguyen's, the Chens, the Johnsons, all the families who'd become her extended family through crisis. "Celebration dinner Saturday," Linda Patterson announced. "Everyone's invited." "Our place," Bob added. "We'll fire up the grill." As they dispersed, Rachel noticed a young couple standing nervously by a sedan with out-of-state plates. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Sheriff Blake." "We're the Carters." We just moved to Oakwood Heights. We heard about everything that happened, and the woman paused, anxious. We wanted you to know we're getting pressure from someone claiming to be from the HOA. Violations, fines. It feels like what we read about. Rachel studied them. Military bearing on him, medical scrubs on her. Exactly Cross's typical targets. Show me everything, she said. They handed her a folder, forged letters, fake fines. The same playbook, different handwriting. When did this start? 3 days after we moved in. Rachel looked across the parking lot to where Rodriguez waited by her patrol car. Rodriguez, we have a problem. He jogged over, reviewed the documents, whistled low. Someone's trying to resurrect Cross's operation. Or never stopped running their own version, Rachel said. She turned to the Carters. We'll handle this. But I need you to document everything. Every interaction, every threat. Should we be worried? Mr. Carter asked. No. You should be prepared. There's a difference. That afternoon, Rachel and Rodriguez visited the Carters Street. 3 other new families had similar stories. Someone was targeting recent arrivals, all with military or government connections. Cross swore he gave up everyone, Rodriguez said. Cross lied. Or someone learned from his mistakes and started fresh. They traced the fake HOA letters to a P.O. box registered to another shell company. The company led to an address, a house 4 blocks from the Carters. Rachel recognized it immediately. The former Mitchell house where Marcus and Diane had lived. Who bought it? She asked. Rodriguez checked his phone. Robert Anderson. Moved in 2 months ago. Background check came back clean. Run it again. Deeper. While Rodriguez worked his phone, Rachel studied the house. Cameras at every corner. Reinforced door. Subtle but serious security. Boss, Rodriguez said. Robert Anderson died 3 years ago. Identity theft. Gets better. The real Anderson was NSA, retired, had top-level clearance. Rachel felt the familiar chill of another predator in her territory. Call Foster. Call everyone. We're not letting this start again. Within hours, federal agents surrounded the house. The fake Robert Anderson tried to run, got 3 blocks before tactical units boxed him in. His real name was Dennis Fletcher, one of Cross's first recruits thought to have fled the country. Instead, he'd gone underground, waiting for heat to die down before starting his own operation. Cross trained me well, Fletcher said as they cuffed him. But not well enough, apparently. No, Rachel said. He didn't teach you the most important lesson. What's that? Communities that have been burned once don't trust strangers with matches. That Saturday, the promised celebration dinner became something more. A victory party, yes, but also a commitment ceremony. The neighborhood pledging to remain vigilant, to protect each other, to never again let predators divide them. Rachel stood in the Pattersons' backyard watching her neighbors laugh and eat and exist without fear. Jack beside her, solid and steady. Rodriguez nearby sharing war stories with the Nguyen teenagers. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost ignored it, then noticed the area code. Oregon, the new development Cross had warned her about. Sheriff Blake, my name is Deputy Collins. I'm with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. We have a situation developing that sounds exactly like what you dealt with. HOA harassment, forged documents targeting military families. I know about the development. Cross sent me. This isn't about the development. This is downtown Portland. Established neighborhood. Been happening for 2 years. Rachel's blood went cold. How many operations were out there? How many communities under siege? Send me everything, she said. I'll come up Monday. She ended the call to find Jack watching her. Another one. Yeah. You're going to help them. Yeah. He smiled, kissed her forehead. That's why I love you. Linda Patterson appeared with a plate of food. Everything okay? New situation. Oregon. Same pattern. Linda's expression hardened. Those bastards never quit, do they? No, but neither do we. Bob joined them. If you need backup in Oregon, say the word. Some of us have vacation time saved up. Rachel looked at this ordinary people who'd become extraordinary when threatened, who'd driven 3 hours to help save Marcus, who'd stood against corruption and won. I might take you up on that. As the sun set over Oakwood Heights, painting the sky in shades of victory and vigilance, Rachel understood the truth Cross had tried to twist. Yes, his ideas had spread. Yes, there would always be new threats. But communities had evolved too. Learn to recognize the patterns, learn to fight back, learn to protect each other. The war wasn't over. Might never be truly over. But tonight in this neighborhood with these people, peace held. And tomorrow when the next call came, the next threat emerged, the next community needed help. Rachel Blake would be ready. She was, after all, not just a sheriff. She was a guardian, a warrior, a neighbor. And she was home.